And welcome back. My next guest is Police Officer Dave Mendez, a Coast Guard veteran. Thank you, Officer Mendez. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Supervisor. Thanks for having me on the show.
Great. So, for the benefit of our viewers, this segment we always have a veteran, and so I'd like to talk a little bit about your service with the Coast Guard. But before we get to that, let's just talk about you personally. Where were you born and raised, and where'd you go to school?
I was born right here in Nanuet. I went to Clarkstown South, class of '06. Yeah, grew up right there in Nanuet. Grew up playing in the Park of Tennyson.
Right around the corner from where I live, actually. I'm over on Lakeshore Drive. So I spent lots of times over at Tennyson, particularly with my with my older kids.
Yeah, back when I was a little kid, the place in the basketball court, that's all you ever needed back in the day.
Absolutely. So, so you graduated Clarkstown South in 2006, and you wanted to go to school, but what did you do outside right after high school?
So right after high school, it was basically, go to college or join the military for me, and I chose the military because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to serve, and ended up choosing the Coast Guard. I always enjoyed the water, and at the time I wanted to be a boat operator, a coxswain, and stuff like that, and I pursued it.
So the Coast Guard's kind of an unusual, service because it's international, it's national as well. You could be serving, anywhere. You could be serving, pretty close to our country. You could also be doing some international service, and which you have done, which we'll talk about shortly. But what was that like getting into the Coast Guard? So you joined the Coast Guard. Where'd you go for training? Kind of get into that.
Our boot camp's in Cape May, New Jersey. It's 8 weeks of fun. And from there, I got deployed to a ship out of Honolulu, Hawaii. So like the Coast Guard's on the Department of Homeland Security, so a lot of our stuff is around the U.S. So from there, I got promoted, went to Yorktown, Virginia for a couple months, and then I ended up in Buffalo, New York, and spent my rest of my active duty career over there to where I ended up in Station, New York, Staten Island now.
So talk to me just a little about some of your duties so you went through your basic and then pulled duty over in Hawaii. So what was that like? What were some of the types of things that you would be doing in the Coast Guard there?
Mostly when I was on the ship, it was patrol. So I was on a 378, one of the largest ships in the Coast Guard, and basically in port it's maintenance of the ship, and then when we got underway, it was commercial fisheries. We used to go up to Alaska and make sure, if other countries weren't fishing in our waters, if they weren't overfishing, make sure they're fishing what they were supposed to be as per what they're allowed to. In Buffalo, I did everything. It's more of a small station. So I went from checking life jackets to working with Customs and Border agents, doing migrant operations and, anti-drug stuff.
And so the anti-drug stuff obviously would be kind of got you into a little bit of almost like the law enforcement piece as well, I would imagine.
Well, ever since I got deployed or stationed out in Hawaii, I was in law enforcement. They call it boarding team members. That's kind of like your first step. So I did that for a year, and then when I came to Buffalo, I had the opportunity to become a boarding officer, and at which point I went from like a contact guy to the lead guy. So ever since then, Coast Guard has authority to arrest and enforce federal law, and that's basically where I started doing small rec boardings to checking life jackets to coming down here and every once in a while getting boating under the influence type stuff.
And so you did how many years in the Coast Guard?
I'm still active, coming up on my 12th year.
Okay, so you service through the Coast Guard for the last 12 years. You're also now obviously a Clarkstown police officer for how many years?
I'm coming up on my 5th year.
5th year. Now you just also recently came back from some special duty. I know that you can't get into too much of the specifics, but you actually went active duty full year, out of pretty much out of the country, correct?
Yeah. So basically, every once in a while, there'll be special opportunities, and they'll ask for. So there's a different type of unit. It's a port security unit. They're a little more specialized in the portways and waterway security. They needed guys, and they called, so I answered, and we ended up going overseas doing some anti-terrorism force protection type stuff, and it was and it was a good experience that I'm very glad I had the opportunity to do.
Mm-hmm. So you were overseas. You really can't get into the details of what you did or where you went, but we do thank you for your service. And pretty much you were gone from the department for a year, but did about 9 months overseas.
Yeah, about 9 months overseas.
Right. So, and again, we appreciate, and the town really tries to support our active duty or vets that call up from reserve duty. We've had a number of officers that have deployed in different special operations, and we'll always support that. The prior administration, my administration, will always support our officers going out to do their duty for the military. And, and my understanding is you obviously acquitted yourself well with that, and we want to thank you for that. Talk to me a little bit about your time in the Clarkstown Police Department. So you're now an officer coming up on 5 years. What do you like about that?
Well, the best part is that I'm serving my community. It's where I grew up. I'm able to address any type of situation or condition in the town of Clarkstown where I grew up. They gave me, so much as a kid. It's it's time to give back, or I'm able to give back, and that's helping out my fellow community is what I like the best about it.
Mm-hmm. And so, what shift are you on in the department?
It's just regular patrol shift. It's a week of days and a week of nights, 4 to 12, 12 to 4.
Right. And I know that as part of your duty with just jumping back to the Coast Guard, let's talk a little bit about what your service was with the Coast Guard. How did that help you being a police officer?
Well, basically, it gave me the experience. So I was a boarding officer. I had authority to arrest. I was car stops and boat stops is not too much different, other than the dynamic that everything's moving in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing you got to be made aware of. So it's the same thing. Deal with good people, bad people, people that are compliant, people that aren't compliant, and based on that, it's just gave me experience to deal with stuff that's on the road.
Right. And I guess if you had the opportunity now to kind of speak to young folks, young people that might be not sure what they want to do or are considering maybe a career in law enforcement, you have any advice for them?
Definitely, think about your option and what's best for you. And it's a very gratifying service. I go to work every day feeling good about myself, and I leave feeling good like I did a little bit today. Mm-hmm. And it's just think about all your options. It's a very it's a time-consuming job, and you gotta love it.
Right. I know one of the things you were telling me off camera before we started was that, you really weren't certain. You wanted to go to college, but Coast Guard really became an opportunity to also assist with affording college as well. So that's certainly an option and an opportunity there. But you love law enforcement. You can tell from your from your career and from that as you've been discussing this. Did you ever think, growing up as a kid, that you would have had these experiences, living in Nanuet, that you would have ended up being in the military, in the Coast Guard, and then, active duty law enforcement?
I have no idea. I've always been a good planner. I always try to think ahead. I always knew I wanted to go to college, just the means to do it I didn't have, so I had to join the military to do so. I went to college after I did active duty. Did I know it was going to happen? Probably someday. When, where, which department? I never knew that. Right.
Yeah, because it's a very competitive department that we have, the Clarkstown Police Department, and it's not easy to get hired here, and you really have to score very highly on tests. You really have to do well through that fairly intensive process of vetting to kind of come through the door. And, you know, so it's a great opportunity. There are loads of officers that I've met from other departments or working in New York City that are kind of lined up at the door, taking the test, trying to get their foot in the door here in Clarkstown, because it is a great community, and we have an exceptional police department because we have people such as yourselves that are serving, that, you know, really bring a wealth of experience here. So it's a credit to you as a person, you know, that you're able to kind of get to where you are in this point in life. And I look forward to watching your career continue to develop. I mean, you're early on, 5 years, but look forward to seeing what the next 25 to 30 years is going to bring for you in the Clarkstown Police Department, and frankly for the the town of Clarkstown, with so many young qualified officers that have come in through the door. We've had a bit of a changing of the guard in the police department over the last couple of years. We've got a lot of younger officers the last 5 to 7 years that are really coming through the door and bringing a wealth of experience, such as yourself with your service in the military, which not every department in the county can say that we've got some of the diversity and some of the wealth of experience that we're bringing in through the door. So anyway, I want to thank you. I think that's pretty much the amount of time that we have for today. I want to thank you for your service to our country, and I want to thank you for your service to our town.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor, and I thank the Clarkstown PBA and the Chief for giving me this opportunity to do my best.
Right. And again, just a wonderful credit to you. Again, you really couldn't tell us too much about the service, but it was a special operation and overseas, and thank you for giving back and doing your duty, serving our country.
No problem. Happy to do it.
Okay. And stay tuned for Clarkstown Councilman Frank Borelli coming up.